Welcome back, Heatmakers. I'm BJR. Today we're going to cover mastering techniques using Cakewalk and Bandlab. My boy Jimmy Flames, I'm telling you, he has some hidden gems that's really going to get that music sound popping. Alright, so let's get it.
All right, thanks BJR for that wonderful introduction. I'm Jimmy Flame with Media Rhythm Institute, and today is all about mastering. Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna show you my mastering techniques, and there's a catch. All the plugins are free. Yeah, that's the catch. All the plugins are free. Most are native to Cakewalk, so you don't have to go searching or download nothing or do anything like that. But I will show you where to get the other ones as well. They're all in the descriptions, so be sure to go down in the descriptions to check out where you can find all the plugins that I'm using today that are not in Cakewalk. But before we get to it, I want to give a big shout out to iRhyme for producing today's theme song, All Day. It's available at Bandcamp. Check out the link right here or go into the descriptions, hit that link down there, and just keep in mind that all proceeds benefit music education in Baltimore City. So I've reached a point in my song where I'm just done with this thing. I'm done mixing it. I'm done banging my head in the walls, all that good stuff. I'm just done with it, right? It's cool. It's good to go. And I'm going to come in here into my DAW. And there's two ways you can go about mastering. One is you could just master from here. You don't have to send, you don't have to, export anything or do anything like that. You could just master from the master bus over here. You could just start piling up plugins up here in your effects bin. However, I would say, don't go doing that. It's perfectly fine if that's the route you want to go. Completely legitimate, totally cool. It's fine to do it all in here. But I do have a couple of reasons why I would recommend doing it the traditional way, which is to export to a stereo track and just do it in a track of its own in a completely clean environment. The main thing is it is the traditional way to do it. Back in the day, when we were done mixing, we would master down to from 2-inch tape to like a 1/4-inch tape. You weren't tempted to reach over and add more reverb to a vocal, or you weren't tempted to reach over and add some delay to a guitar or something like that. No, that was all set in stone. So basically the mastering process is the point where you've reached where everything is set in stone. And the only thing you're doing now is really adding color and texture. There's another reason which is more psychological in that, like I just said, like if you're mastering in here, you're going to be tempted to go over and start remixing. You know what I mean? You're going to be tempted to go add an effect or something like that. Doing it separately creates a really clean environment for you to work in with like zero distractions. And finally, is that clean environment? It's you and basically the stereo track, and that's it. But before we do any exporting, I want you to go over here to your master bus. I have it over here right next to my head. You're going to see, if you scroll up, you're going to see, you want to set up your bus to detect peaking. You want to come up here to the top of your DAW and click on options. You want to go over to meter options and then go down to bus meter options. And here's how I have mine set up. I just have the peak checked. Some people do peak and RMS, which is fine. I don't think it's absolutely necessary because all I'm doing, I'm just looking for the peak number. Post fader checked. I have it set to for the meter range to read 60 decibels for me, and show labels, hold peaks, lock peaks. I don't really need those because I'm getting a number. Now, if you were doing it the other way, which would be the graphic version of this, that I got a whole other tutorial on that coming down the pipe, so you can check that stuff out there. Don't really need it here, and I'll show you why. So now that I've got that set up, I want to go find a loud portion of the song. And right at the beginning, I have a riser that's pretty loud. So if you go back to your master, you just look over here, there's a 0, right? And right next to it is a meter peak. This is the number that you're interested in. So you're going to go to the loudest point of your song. And I peaked at 6.2. And that's with a stab. Cool. So we got that figured. We got that sussed out. My peak is -6.2, which falls, close in that range of -6, -3, -7, or whatever. You want to leave yourself enough headspace, enough headroom in the mastering process so you can really start crunching all these sounds together and get a broader a thicker RMS out of it. If yours peaks at 0, that's fine. Just don't let it go above 0 because you don't want to deal with clipping in the mastering process. So keep it at 0 or below, ideally somewhere in that -6 to -3 range. And one last thing, prior to export, you want to make sure that your numbers are correct. So if you go up here just under the timeline, the timestamp rather, you'll see these couple numbers right here. Mine says 44.1, that's the hertz, and then 16 bits. You want to make sure that you save it at the same number. So then you would just go to the top left portion of the screen under File, Export, Audio, and Cakewalk gives you a lot of options. So just click your preset tab and come down here and you'll see a bunch of these options for exporting. You want to just do entire mix. Click on that. And then you come down and make sure you do it as a WAV file. Don't do it as an MP3. Those are compressed files. Now remember, my sample rate was 44,100, and my bit depth, I can't talk, that's funny. Bit depth was just 16. So I'm doing that. Channel format stereo, all this other stuff, just leave it be. And then you go on down and you click export. And now we can exit the DAW, go over here to File, just close it, and then voila, this window opens back up. So now, to set up the mastering, I'm just going to click New Project, Empty Project, and now I have a new DAW to work with. And the first thing I want to do at this point is create 2 new tracks. One track is going to be for the track that you're trying to master, and another one is going to be for a reference. So you can bounce back and forth and use a reference track for your EQs and all that good stuff. So I'm just going to go up here to the little plus sign, add audio, and then I'm going to add one more. Now I got 2 tracks created. Let's give them some space here. And bam, let's rename them. In the top track, I'm going to name it the song title, which is called Tune In. And then track 2, I'm just going to call it Reference. And I'm going to highlight Tune In and import that audio file. And voila, it's there. Same with the reference. I'm just going to go highlight Reference, import, audio, and bam, we're both there. And the first thing you're going to notice is my reference track is loud. It is way louder. Check that out. So I can't really play the reference track for you right here because of copyright issues. I don't want our channel to get flagged by YouTube and all that good stuff. But I just stress that in your own project, use a reference track that's similar to your song. So we're good to go there, and I'm going to pull up the master bus and we're going to start building our chain. So make sure you highlight the track that you're mastering, which is track 1. It's highlighted. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to clean this out. You cannot get rid of this EQ over here, but you want to open up your Pro channel by just clicking on that little, it looks like a knob or something like that, but you just click on it and you'll see the EQ, you'll see all this other stuff. We're not interested in anything but the EQ on here. So to get rid of it, you just, all these other things, you just right click, remove module, come on down to Console C, remove the module, and that, and then there's a tube module right here. We're going to remove that as well. We're only interested, like I said, in EQ. And this is just a simple EQ. Double click to open it. This is a real simple EQ that we're going to do here. I'm just going to add a high pass filter right here. And I want this slope to be as sloped as possible. There we go. And then I'm just going to kind of start like way at the end here. Now, the reason why I'm doing this is because there's a lot of low end in most music that your ears can't really hear, but the plugins or the effects are going to pick up. They're going to pick up those frequencies and they're going to interact with those frequencies that you can't even hear. And it's going to cause your music it's going to cause like some really weird effects to happen that you didn't intend to happen on your sound. So the way that I deal with this is I go high pass, big slope, and I just start at the very end. I'm going to end up like somewhere in like 25 or the 25 hertz range or something like that on this high pass filter. But I'm going to start by finding a part of the song that's super bassy. Let me go over this way. I know there's a big bass part, like up here. There's a kick drum that starts in, and all I'm looking for here is, so now it's starting to sound really thin, right? So what I want to do is bring it back until that bass starts kicking in. And the idea is to find a point where you can't really hear the difference when you're moving it. So this will get rid of any of those ghost bass frequencies that try to sneak through and destroy your plugin or influence your plugin in a way that you don't want it to. Okay, that's close enough to get us started. Let's move on to the next plugin in our chain. So the console bus is this really cool emulator that just kind of adds this color to the sound that you can't really get anywhere else. And let me just pull it up and start showing it to you here. You go up here to your Pro Channel, and just under the Pro Channel button, you'll see a little plus sign. You hit plus, and then you want to come down here. You'll see a couple of different emulators. There's an emulator channel, and there's an emulator bus. I'm going to go with the emulator bus. Boom, click it there, and you'll see 3 different types. I like the S type on this, but there's also an N type and an A type. Actually, I am going to try the N type because it's a little bit more gritty than the others. So let's play a portion of the song. So you don't really hear much of a difference just yet, and that's because it's not receiving enough drive to really enact the plugin, so you can't really hear it. And a way around that is to add an FX module. Just go up here to the plus sign again, and I am going to find this FX chain, and you want the FX chain to land in between the EQ and this module. And within the FX chain, just hit controls, and now we can start pushing the signal a little bit to get this console to respond. You got it. We tripping, girl, we rockin', we lifted and we locked in, going party hopping, and now we're in and we feeling it. 2 hours in and we killing it. There, now you can hear a little bit of a difference, but I don't really like using the FX chain as a way to get more gain out of the overall volume. I'm going to get rid of it, but it's definitely something you should experiment with especially if you're new to mastering. So I'm going to right click here, remove the module, and let's go to the next one. Saturation really helps clean up your sound. It really helps get you that really pristine, like just chimey, just really, really cool sound. And I'm going to achieve saturation using 2 plugins. One, I'm going to have a straight up saturation knob, and the other one, I'm going to add a tape emulator here that's really going to bring out all those highs. So I'm going to go up here, click. Come on down. I really like this saturation knob right here. There's the tape emulator. There's also a tube saturator right here. You can choose either or. I'm going to go with the saturation knob for now, but a tape saturation. Actually, I'll show you both of them. So real quick, with the tape saturation, or not tape saturation, but the tube saturation. What am I talking about? It's late. You have an input, you have your drive, and then you have your output. Now keep in mind that you're more than likely going to have to add some input in order to get the drive to respond. But with each decibel of input you add, you're going to want to subtract with output because you don't want to get the signal too hot. An aggregation of all these plugins can really start messing up, and muddying up your sound. Start adding some drive. Scroll that down. I gotta constantly monitor your master bus. And then I went up 4 decibels, so I'm going to come back 4 decibels here. That sounds pretty good. And that should give you a general idea on how to use the tube saturator. However, I'm going to get rid of it, and I'm going to add my saturation knob. This is probably one of my favorite plugins for mastering. This one has 3 different options: a keep high, neutral, keep low. I keep it on neutral because I don't want it to really sting at that high end. You can try either or of these, but the main thing is to gradually add some saturation to this and then keep your eye on this light right here, which will light up as the gain gets higher. So let's give it a play.
Drop out. I love it. Tune in, turn on, drop out. I love it. Tune in, turn on, drop out. We tuning in.
Sounds pretty good. It's at least good for this stage. And the technique I use here is I'll just start pushing the saturation up. Once I see the red light flicker, I'll pull it back down to where it's not flickering, and I'll just kind of keep it in that area. And now, following saturation, I'm going to add this wonderful plugin called a tape emulator after the saturation knob. And I'm not going to mess with this one too much. Over here, you'll see that there's a knob for noise. There's the level, and then there's the PB level. So this is basically like the level that it was recorded. It emulates it pretty well. And then this one is basically a fancy way of saying output. Let's push it out there, right? And then you have your bias as well, normal, over. I'm going to go over bias. And then your tape speed of 15 or 7.5. I'm going to keep it a nice fast tape speed here and just add a little bit of noise. And then maybe just a little bit of record level. That'll saturate it just a little bit more. All right, so now we've spent a lot of time, or at least some time, adding like color and character to the song. Now let's compress it a little bit. Now compression here at this stage, what I'm looking to do is just chop just a little bit at the top and then push a little bit at the bottom. I want to start like shrinking this signal a little bit, so when I get to the limiters later, I can really start crushing it up and get the song to be as loud as possible. And the compressor I'm going to use here, you go down, where'd it go? You have a S-type bus compressor, and then you have a U-type compressor. I'm going to go with the S-type bus compressor. You can try either or, but I found this one to be a lot warmer, a lot more forgiving, and it helps you retain the dynamics of the song while compressing the daylights out of it. But anyhow, I like to start it by going up, turn the threshold all the way up so the compressor is essentially off. Put the attack at about 12 o'clock. It's about 2 milliseconds. Its release, I'll probably just keep it right around where it is. Makeup is basically as you pull the threshold back, the song is going to get a little bit quieter because it's starting to compress down. Makeup, essentially, it's a fancy way of saying output. It just kind of boosts that output back up to the level at which it came in. So let's go back here and play a little bit. Start pulling that threshold back. As you can see, it is messing with that audible level. So what I want to do is keep it under that 4. I want to kind of hover between 0 and 4 in that meter. And then attack. And right here, I'm going to change the ratio to 4:1. 2:1 is a little bit too much. It's a little too smashy. So let's hear what it sounds like at 4:1. I like it. All right, we're down to our last bit. We're going to move over to the master bus. We're done with mastering the track. So we're going to move over to the master bus because I need one more EQ, and you can't add 2 EQ, like over here, see? You can't add another EQ here. I mean, I suppose you could use your FX module and add a tertiary EQ, which is fine, but I'm trying to show you how to do this with as much Cakewalk stuff as possible. Cakewalk does not allow you to do 2 passes of the EQ in a single track. So I'm going to go over here to the master bus and work with the EQ here. And the reason why you want to do one more EQ here is because this is where you're really trying to match up with your reference track. Again, I can't play the reference track because of copyright issues. I would love to show you the song because it's a rad song and I'm pretty sure you'd love it. But yeah, we just can't do it because of copyright issues. So just be sure to reference your reference when you're using this final stage of EQ. And One other thing I wanted to show you, and it's just something really helpful in general, is on your main EQ's high end, you want to make it a high shelf, right? And you do that by clicking this little guy down here, this little squiggly line. And now as you turn up the gain, you can see a shelf being created. So I'm not going to go into the ins and outs of EQ here. We're going to have another tutorial on that. So be sure to subscribe to our channel, get notified when that stuff drops. Go check out the channel, when it happens. I'm going to have a whole tutorial on EQ itself. So I'm not going to dive too far into it now. I'm just going to tell you some of the basic things that you should probably do at this stage with your second EQ and final EQ. So high shelf, I'm just going to turn it up just a little bit. Don't worry about the conventions where people are like, don't turn your highs up above +3 or +6, whatever, dude. Do whatever it takes to make your song pop. So let's go up here and play.
You got it. We tripping, girl, we rocking, we lifted and we locked.
Ooh, that's a lot.
Going party hopping. And now we're in and we feeling it. 2 hours in and we killing it. A couple hours later and we still in it.
And finally, the last thing you want to do in your master bus is apply your limiter. Now, Cakewalk does have a limiter called Boost 11. That's pretty cool. You can find it in their free plugins or whatever. But I've downloaded an amazing limiter called Loudmax. Go down in the descriptions and download that one like faux real. It is the smoothest, most crystal clean digital limiting plugin I've ever used in my entire life. This thing is amazing for mastering. So to access it, I'm going to scroll up my master bus to the effects and hit the plus sign, and then wherever I ended up saving it, I think it's uncategorized, and I'm going to choose Loudmax. It's behind my head. That's hilarious, but it'll be called Loudmax, and boom, it opens up over here. And here's where I'm going to put the finishing touches on our master. So let me scroll back a little bit in the song and find a good spot to start applying this limiter. I'm going to zero everything out, but I can already tell you right now, my output, I'm going to go 0.1, and you can adjust that on the slider down here, just below that 0 mark. It's just a thing that I do. You can go all the way to 0 if you like it, and you're not actually going to hear a difference, but that's just something that I do. 0.1. So let's give that a try. Now, as you pull the threshold back, it's really going to start squeezing the song.
Tune in, turn on, drop out. Tune in, turn on, drop out. I love it. Tune in, turn on, drop out. I love it. Tune in.
And you got to be careful with the threshold, because this is where you can start getting some pumping and you won't even realize it because it's just loud, sounds great, right? And this is where you can really push the volume of your song to its max, right? That's why it's called Loudmax. So remember back at the very beginning where I told you to use the high pass filter and pull out all those ghost bass sounds that you can't really hear, but that your plugin might hear? That's exactly why you do it. You do it so that you can really push this thing up and then not get any pumping, or actually avoid pumping, right? Not get any pumping, avoid pumping. It's the same thing. But needless to say, pulling the threshold back could result in some. So be very aware of that. And the second you catch it, start moving back to the right. Let's give it a try.
Turn on, drop out. I love it. Tune in, turn on, drop out. We tune in, turn on, drop out. Drop out.
So the last thing I want to do before we're finished is come down here to the master, and I just want to monitor one more time my RMS, or rather my average decibels down here to make sure that they don't go over 0, but I also want them to kind of like be mushed towards the top. So let's give this a listen.
Got a new fit on and I'm feeling good. Feeling like a bag of money like you know I should. We trying to have fun, better face it. We don't want none of that basic.
All right, that sounds pretty good if you ask me. We've got a nice loud master that's maintained all the dynamic range, and there's no pumping. What more could you ask for? All right, thanks for tuning in. I'm out.
Thanks for tuning in. Make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel, and drop y'all links in the comments. Any other content that you all want us to do, make sure you comment that as well. Get out of here.